Welcome to today's video. We're going to be talking a little bit more about mantra. So the Sanskrit word mantra essentially translates to tool for the mind. And we use mantra as a tool to bring the mind inward, away from the external world outside of us, away from the thoughts that distract us, away from that monkey mind that is constantly keeping us awake at night and leading to us worrying about the future or ruminating on the past. Now, mantra has really been around, and we can see evidence of and examples of mantra in many different cultures and different religions throughout history. So you see mantra or a form of mantra being utilized as a spiritual practice in things like the Catholic tradition, where you've got the Gregorian chants. You've got it in African tribal chants, which then gets combined with movement in the form of dance. We see this in Native American cultures as well. And we see this in Hebrew chants and even in Islamic calls to prayer. So in many different world religions, in many different cultures, you find this repetition of sound, mantra, what we call in Sanskrit, in the yoga tradition, as a tool for developing a spiritual awareness, developing a sense of concentration that takes us beyond the normal waking state. Utilizing mantra as a tool to bring the mind inward is a tool to help bring our mind inward so that we can create that connection with our truest sense of self. And in other traditions, maybe that's a connection with God that perhaps resonates with you more. In the yoga tradition, we're really looking for self-realization and trying to connect with our truest sense of self, with that universal consciousness that we understand is who we all are and is the essence and source of who we are. Whether or not you then ascribe that to a particular deity, to God, to whatever you want to call it, is up to you and based on your own beliefs and religious traditions. But at least in yoga, we're connecting with our truest sense of self that lives within us, and we're using mantra as a tool to bring the mind inward so that we can create that connection. The purpose of mantra is really to bring our mind from a state of activity in which we have all of these thoughts constantly going on in the back of our head to a state of silence. And the key here is that that state of silence can last for any length of time, including 1 millisecond, in which we might not even recognize that we did just experience a state of silence. So the purpose of mantra meditation and utilizing the mantra, the purpose of any meditation really, regardless of what tool you're using, what technique you're using, is to go from a state of activity, and that doesn't just mean physical activity, that can mean mental or even emotional activity as well, to a state of inner stillness and silence, that peace, that bliss, that awe, that joy that we feel when we have those moments that we slip into a deep peace in our meditation practice. These mantras, these sounds are meant to be just that, sounds, vibrations. And in that way, they don't have any particular meaning. And the reason why that's important is because when something has meaning, it exists at the level of the thoughts, because we're having thoughts about what that means. And then when we know that a word means something, we immediately create associations in our mind. That meaning makes us think of other things and then brings up memories or other thoughts that then takes us down the rabbit hole of our mind, and we continue to think and we stay at the level of activity in the mind. When we have a mantra that we're meditating on or repeating in our mind and it doesn't have any particular meaning, all of a sudden our mind can't latch on to any type of memory or any type of experience or any type of thought associated with that particular mantra, because there just isn't anything there. There's no meaning to latch onto, nothing to attach to. And so that's why in the primordial sound meditation technique, we utilize mantras that have no meaning. Now, that doesn't mean that the mantra technique can't be useful even when you have a mantra that has a meaning. It just means that the mantra becomes a tool to help you hone your focus and your concentration skills. So you focus and concentrate on repeating the mantra, repeating the mantra, repeating the mantra, repeating the mantra, so that your mind doesn't wander to other places. And when your mind does wander to other places, because that is the nature of the mind, we bring it back to the repetition of the mantra. And that practice of repeating the mantra, repeating the mantra, repeating the mantra, mind goes somewhere else, we realize the mind has gone somewhere else, we bring it back to the mantra. That is the practice of mantra meditation that hones our skills at developing concentration. We need that concentration to allow for the state of meditation to arise. So mantra is a tool that we use in our mind to take our mind away from all the external things happening, all the thoughts, and focus and concentrate and bring it inward. Now, of course, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, there are many different objects of focus that are mentioned that you could utilize, that you could focus on, including the breath. And we see the breath come up in Vipassana meditation techniques. Mindfulness meditation is a technique where you're really just watching the thoughts and trying to practice non-judgment. And so all of these different techniques have benefits, and there's been tons of scientific research that proves the benefits of these practices on the body's physiology and helping us to become more relaxed and helping us to calm down the nervous system, which in turn helps to decrease inflammation in the body, which can then lead to a lot of positive health outcomes physically, but then also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So this is not to say that there's any one meditation technique that is better than the other. I personally really have found in all of my experimentation over the years in different meditation practices that the mantra-based meditation has helped me the most in being able to stick with the practice, which is of course important because we need something that we can really resonate with and stick with and keep showing up for. But it's also helped me go the deepest into taking my mind inward and really starting to connect to that deeper sense of self and purpose and consciousness, which is something that has evolved for me over time as I've continued in my own meditation practice. And so that's what I want to share with you, is this mantra-based technique based on the primordial sound meditation that I practice, which is based on that Shankaracharya lineage that comes from the yoga tradition. We practice mantra meditation by repeating the mantra in our heads silently rather than externalizing it, because again, we're trying to move everything inward rather than taking energy out of us. We're coming in, so we repeat it to ourselves silently rather than allow the energy to move out of us, which is what you might be doing when you're chanting mantra in something like a kirtan, where you're kind of singing or chanting and allowing that energy to move out of you. That is also beneficial in different ways, and it can bring about very much a spiritual state. The chanting of the mantra outwards in something like a kirtan practice actually is a pranayama practice as much as it is a mental practice, because simply talking, chanting, allowing the movement of the energy to move outward requires breath. And so in traditional chanting practices, you chant a certain amount, and sometimes long amounts, because you're trying to extend the exhalation and the amount of time that you are chanting outwards and moving the energy outwards. And you're taking very short inhalations often, and that's changing the chemistry, really, of the blood oxygen in your body, which has powerful effects in pranayama practices. And so chanting outward with a mantra or any Sanskrit is really a combination of pranayama practices that then bring our awareness inward as we develop concentration and this spiritual bhakti, devotion, that brings about states of bliss, both physiologically, because we're moving into almost a state of hyperventilation, And then, of course, that has mental and emotional components as well. But in a meditation practice where we're trying to bring our awareness inward, the mantra is repeated silently to ourself. These mantras, when you're doing something like a primordial sound meditation and you're repeating a mantra to yourself that has no meaning and thus helps you bring your awareness inward and keeps your awareness at the level of no thought, those sounds are really sounds that are representations of nature, representations of the cosmos, representations of the universe. And in that way, we're really just trying to connect with that energy all around us because we are that energy. And so in repeating that mantra, in focusing on the vibrational quality of that sound, we're connecting ourselves to the sound of the universe itself, to that universal consciousness that is within all of us. And that is why it can be so powerful to have a mantra that has no meaning. We have to be able to focus, we have to be able to concentrate before we can go deeper and really start to reap the benefits of experiencing that deeper consciousness, deeper qualities of consciousness within us. Because if we can't focus and just keep our mind focused on that mantra, there will never be the space. We're not allowing the space for that deeper consciousness to arise within us, which, remember, it's already there within you. We all have it. It's just a matter of unpacking it, allowing it to bubble up, releasing and letting go of all of the layers of dirt that are laying on top of it, that are hiding our awareness and knowledge of what's already there within each and every one of our hearts. When you go back all the way to the very beginning of yoga, when there was no downward facing dog and chaturanga dandasana and sun salutations, what were the yogis, the ancient yogis practicing? They were practicing meditation. They were practicing chanting and ritual. They were practicing utilizing mantra. And so that's what keeps us connected to the ancient yoga tradition.